Hey, everyone, as we stay in division, I think we could generally get a consensus that would make sense from College Football Nation on most coaches, whether good coach, bad coach, elite coach, whatever. How good is James Franklin, Tony?
He went straight to Tony.
Well,
Kevin can't wait.
he won. He beat one ranked team in the SEC, and that was when Aaron Murray got hurt. Vanderbilt beat Georgia one year. He
was at Vanderbilt, Tony. He went 9-4, 9-4, and won two bowl games.
In the SEC East.
On the worst SEC East in recent memory. He got mad on them.
But I do think he's a very good recruiter. I don't know if he's a very good signer, because you lose Justin Fields, you lose all of these decommits. Yeah, he's pretty good. I mean, Ohio State has been within a hair of losing to them the last 2 years, and probably should have both years. Is he the best in the Big Ten? Yeah, I think he's pretty good, but he has flaws, and sometimes it's a 4th and 5 handoff, or whatever, and sometimes those flaws come out in bad timing. And I think the same thing is true for Pat Fitzgerald, but that's another discussion.
He's no Bill O'Brien. I think Bill O'Brien was a much better coach, not as charismatic, maybe not the same recruiter, but I think Bill O'Brien could coach circles around him in terms of X's and O's and getting guys in the right position and developing players. I'm not sold on James Franklin. I wasn't sold on him at Vanderbilt. I think he just was a beneficiary of a really bad SEC East and was able to fatten up there. He came in, picked up where Bill O'Brien left off before he went to Houston. I think that a lot of their issues of him not being able to hold on to players and things along those lines are just coming home to roost. And I'm not saying his seat is hot by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that some of the bloom is coming off the rose, and I'm already hated in State College. I mean, literally, I've been.
Well, you might as well just cut loose, Kevin.
In State College,
he is the Jack Cohn of coaches.
I'm the Jack Cohn of Ohio State media.
If Jack Cohn transfers, Kevin would be in his glory if he went to Penn State.
I do think he needs a very good staff to be a really very good head coach. And maybe that's true for most coaches, but it's especially true for him.
Kevin, keep in mind, this is a discussion for our SEC show that I'm launching next. Well, no, I'm not. I'm just kidding. I'm always launching shows. So, but the SEC East was down comparative to SEC standards. Mm-hmm. This was not an awful division at the time compared to what we expect out of the SEC Eastern Division at the time. All right, Claire.
What I see from James Franklin seems to be a lot of the talk and not as much of the walk. What I think it might end up boiling down to is a culture issue. And I think Kevin nailed it by talking about player development. And I truly believe that's where culture comes into play. But that's my very short, abbreviated version of what I think about James Franklin, because he likes to talk a lot, but.
Well, what Kevin outlined in regards to a coaching discrepancy, in regards to ability to scheme and develop and X's and O's, there's no comparison between Bill O'Brien. We see him with the Houston Texans and what he's done there. He is a genius when it comes to coaching football. That doesn't necessarily mean building a program, although what he did was pretty amazing in taking a situation in which I thought, who in the world is going to touch, anything above a 3-star is going to touch that program for years? Why would you go somewhere else, avoid the stigma? Obviously, the bowl ban being lifted helped, but Bill O'Brien has to be given all sorts of credit for maintaining some level of credibility on the field, going 7-5 and 7-5, 8-4. I think it was 8-4, 7-5. Those 2 years with nothing to play for was astonishing in my view.
I think that's why he's not hated by Penn State fans, right? That's why they appreciate what he did, and you leave and that's fine. Thank you for what you did. You bridged the gap that could have been no bridge. It could have just been a chasm. And I think they should hold him in high esteem, and maybe higher esteem as the years go by when you have James Franklin blowing a couple of games here and there.
And he does blow games. And he made a comment after the Ohio State game last year. I think this was the year. It was one of the 2 1-point losses, but I believe it was this most recent one where he said, "We're a great program." And I was like, whoa, hey. And then he went to the elite level and said, "They're elite. We want to be elite. We're just great." And I was like, well, not in my definition book. Is 9-4 great, losing to the likes of Michigan State and Kentucky in a bowl game? That doesn't really define greatness on for me. But
You can't beat the SEC East. I already told you that.
And they did a great job of not tackling Ben Victor.
Yes. You know what I would like to see is a war of words between James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh. And just let them go back and
How
forth.
does that not happen?
I don't know. Why is that not happening? Urban Meyer and James Franklin has had a little thing. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh and Urban Meyer, but why can't we get these two together?
And they trade killing each other every other year is the way it's been the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
He was really close in that 2016 season of being on a severe hot seat. They had lost to Michigan 42-10. They lost to Pitt, a marginal Pitt team. They were like 3-2. They had a difficult stretch in front of them. He did turn around that ship to go to the Rose Bowl, win the Big Ten championship, which kind of set him up for some really good recruiting classes and good teams the last 2 years. They won a Fiesta Bowl. Last year was disappointing. The program's in good shape, but to take a program from 6 or 7 wins and to elevate it to 9 or 10 wins is a great step to take. But if you want to take the next step, then you're talking about beating like top 15 teams in your conference. And so that's a huge step. The next one needs to be big for him.
I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't see it. They lose their quarterback, they lose their backup quarterback. I mean, now it's going to come down to Sean Clifford. A lot of questions there. We just don't know what he's going to be about. I mean, they lose one of their major receivers by way of transfer. You don't have, you lose your running back. I mean, they got some talented young guys in there, including Ricky Slade. They've had some offensive line issues. I think, you could say that about 80% of Division I football, though. I mean, the offensive line isn't where they'd like to see it. I just think they're going to have a hard time putting points up on the board. I don't see them having a prolific offense this year. I think they have a good system in terms of defense. I think that their defense will maintain, even if it's a lot of names that we don't necessarily recognize. And, we've kind of talked about it. Claire mentioned as well. I think that there's some culture issues going on there right now. They have some players that got suspended over the summer for an alleged fraternity fight or something like that. I think they really need to tighten up the ship there. I think that's creating some of the issues around there. And I think that that's part of the reason too, why you've seen their recruiting class fall apart this year as well.
Exactly. And just like Tony mentioned, getting someone to commit and getting someone to sign. I think once someone is more involved in a culture and they see what that happens, and then you're getting decommits, I'm going to put a stamp on that and put a guess to say that may be a culture issue.
Yeah, I was just looking. Penn State is 2-7 against top 10 Big Ten opponents since James Franklin arrived. One of those wins was the win over Ohio State, which was, a little fluky. So yeah, as you guys are saying, he needs to step up, and that begins with beating those teams that maybe you shouldn't be beating or where you're not the favorite.
Tony, how do you know that James Franklin didn't himself coach the special teams that week, that he didn't take over the special teams? Maybe he masterminded that win over Ohio State.
You're right. That's my fault. That's my bad.
Coach Urban, not
very possible.
There instead of rushing the field goal unit out there. I mean,
he probably told him precisely where to block that kick, who to pick it up, when to pick it up. So yeah, you're right. I do think he's better than Bill O'Brien. Good point.